Welcome back to Stop My Crisis. I am your host, Vivian Gaspar, and I'm here right now with James Castiglia, a general practice attorney in Oak Ridge, Morris County, New Jersey. Jim has been an attorney for 39 years and serves both individuals and small business owners with their legal needs, including a variety from litigation all the way to DWI, criminal, and matrimonial, as well as real estate law. Jim, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for being here.
Pleasure to be here, Vivian.
Thank you so much. And right now, I know that a very big problem that I don't think anyone actually addresses before it happens is DUI. So tell me, my first curiosity is, what is the difference between DWI and DUI? Because we hear both terms knocked around.
DWI is driving while intoxicated. DUI is driving under the influence. DUI is the offense in New Jersey.
And how big a problem is drunk driving?
Drunk driving is a tremendous problem. The CDC estimates that over 28 people a day die in traffic fatalities as a result of alcohol. That's every day. Last year, 1.1 million people were arrested for drunk driving. That's approximately 1% of all the licensed drivers in the nation. So it's a substantial problem.
So you're saying 28 people a day. That really translates to 28 families losing their loved ones daily. What is New Jersey's response as a state?
New Jersey has some of the most severe drunk driving laws of any state in the nation. For a first offense, you can get either a 3-month or 7 month to 1 year suspension. In addition, there are court fines, there are motor vehicle penalties. There's also a requirement to attend an intoxicated driver school. So the penalties are complicated, and they can be enhanced if, for example, there's a second offense involved.
We all know that the ultimate price of drunk driving is injuring or killing both yourself and anyone else that might be, unfortunately, in that collision. But let's talk about the dollars and cents, because so many people think, not only is it not going to happen to me, but I'm never going to hurt anyone or kill anyone else. What is the dollars and cents involved if you are the one perpetrating being the drunk driver?
Well, beyond drunk driving offense, which is a motor vehicle offense, if as a result of an accident you injure or kill someone, that can be treated as a criminal offense, which is on top of the drunk driving offense. So it can be a double whammy for you.
What happens if you don't injure another party, hypothetically? What does that look like in dollars and cents? So what does the penalty equal from the state? Does your insurance go up? What happens dollars and cents wise?
In addition to the motor vehicle suspension, there's going to be a fine imposed by the court, which for a first offense could be anywhere from $500 to $700, but it can multiply for an additional or third offense. In addition, Division of Motor Vehicles imposes a $1,000 a year surcharge on your license. So you're paying that extra $1,000 every year for the next 3 years in order to continue to drive.
And of course, your insurance will most likely be increased.
Your insurance is going to take a big hit.
And of course, we don't know exactly what that is because it will differ based on circumstance and carrier, correct?
It will also depend mostly on your prior driving record.
That makes a lot of sense.
But even an unblemished record, if there's a drunk driving conviction, it's going to hurt.
What can an attorney do for someone if they're arrested for drunk driving?
Well, unfortunately in New Jersey, the minimum penalties are very severe, but an attorney can find and make sure that you only get the minimums. Look, our police are professional, and most of the time when they make a drunk driving arrest, it's going to hold up in court. So an attorney can, in addition to making sure you get the minimums, occasionally can find some issues to argue with the prosecutor.
There have been some urban legends that I've heard. For example, that you have the right to deny getting a breathalyzer test. You're allowed to refuse it. Is that true?
Absolutely not. Driving is a privilege in New Jersey. You are given a license. When you're given that license, you're presumed to consent. If you refuse to take a breathalyzer test, that is a separate offense.
Oh.
You can be convicted for that and penalized for that on top of the underlying drunk driving offense.
So you recommend that you just comply with whatever the officer is asking you to do?
Whenever you are stopped by a police officer, it's always a good idea to comply. But yes, do not refuse to take the breathalyzer test. You can gain nothing from it.
Great, this is extremely, and the one last question I have as a takeaway, define for me really quick, what is a safe limit? If you're out to a restaurant or a party, how safe can you be when you drink?
Vivian, there is no safe limit. Even one drink can put you over the limit if you're arrested very quickly. Whenever you go out, make sure you have a designated driver. And if you think you've had too much to drink, call a cab, call Uber, call Lyft, but don't drink and drive.
Thank you, Jim, very much. I appreciate this. Extremely valuable for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Drink.
Can you ask one more question possibly? Can a consumer buy a breathalyzer and use that as a barometer for them to be safe driving?
Can we edit that in?
Yeah, you're still rolling. Film is rolling. So I think it's an important
All right,
question.
we can go
If
back
you can
in.
buy these on Groupon for like $15, $20.
All right.
Do they work or not?
Okay, we
Yeah.
can fit that and then we'll do the wrap up again, handshake and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim, I do have one final question that occurred to me. I see Groupons and coupons and all kinds of advertisements where you could buy your own breathalyzer to check yourself to see if you're safe, if you've exceeded the potential limits to be able to drive or not. What do you think of those devices that someone can purchase?
Those devices are not going to be accurate as opposed to the device the police use. But it can tell you that you've been drinking alcohol, and if it prevents you from drinking additional alcohol, it's probably a good thing.
That would be a good way to know. And how much force has Mothers Against Drunk Driving had in New Jersey? Do they have a lot of power?
Mothers Against Drunk Driving is a very powerful lobby. Interestingly enough, they have supported the imposition of what's called an ignition interlock. That's the device that goes into your car and you have to breathe into it in order to drive. Listen, long suspensions don't just hurt the person convicted, they hurt the family. It's tough to keep your job. Mothers Against Drunk Driving has recommended that we replace our severe suspensions in New Jersey with a shorter suspension, possibly even a license that allows you to go back and forth to work. Unfortunately, none of our legislators have picked up on this and introduced any such legislation.
Well, I thank you very much for dispelling a lot of misinformation out there. And of course, never drink and drive. It's always a safe bet. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you, Gat.
Spills of hazardous chemicals, toxic smoke in the air. By law, every town and county in New Jersey must have an up-to-date emergency response plan available to its employees, emergency response workers, and the public. We can better prevent disaster if we're all prepared. For information, go to njwec.org or osha.gov. This message brought to you by the New Jersey Work Environment Council.
Welcome back to Stop My Crisis. I am your host, Vivian Gaspar, and here with me again, I do have Jim Castiglia, a local attorney. And I really want to know, because unfortunately it can happen to anyone, what happens if you do get arrested? I mean, how often does this occur, and what does it mean to be arrested? What's the most common offense that happens to an average person, not a career criminal?
The most common crime is harassment or assault, usually in a neighborhood context or domestically. If a police officer feels there's a probable cause that you committed a crime and that you committed it, you're going to get arrested.
What does it mean when a person is charged with a crime?
It means they're charged with a crime, they're booked, fingerprinted, and then either released on bail or on their own recognizance.
What does bail usually look like?
Bail
If you have like a harassment charge or a neighborhood offense, what
could
is that?
run anywhere from a couple of $100 to $1,000.
And what is the difference between crimes and misdemeanors? I always hear about felonies, misdemeanors. Do they still make that distinction?
Criminal offenses in New Jersey are graded from the low, petty disorderly persons, and those are heard in municipal court. And then you have fourth, third, second, and first degree offenses. Those are heard on the county level and prosecuted by a county prosecutor.
And am I going to jail if I get arrested, for example, if I have a conflict with a neighbor and things get a little out of control, or if my spouse calls the police on me because they thought our fight got a little out of control? Do I go to jail?
Assuming you didn't kill the person and it's not a serious crime and you have no prior record, there is a presumption against jail on a first offense. So for the first time around, unless it's a very serious offense or there are aggravating circumstances, the likelihood is you're not going to go to jail.
What happens if I can't afford an attorney? Because of course, if I'm arrested, the first thing I think of, let me call an attorney.
Our Constitution guarantees a representation. If you cannot afford an attorney, a public defender will be appointed for you.
Is there any cost at all with having that public defender?
There may be an administrative charge of a couple of $100.
So there is a cost. So for people living very narrow paycheck to paycheck, there is that couple $100 cost that they do have to worry about.
But that can be paid over time.
Very good information to know. And are drug charges treated any differently? Nowadays, we talk a lot about marijuana, the medical marijuana. What about those type of drug charges?
In every county in New Jersey, there is a separate drug court. If you are charged with a drug offense, you have to make an application to have the matter heard in the drug court. And the purpose of the drug court is not punishment, it's rehabilitation, getting you into treatment, getting you straight, and if you complete all of those requirements, getting the charges against you dropped.
What do you find, in addition to what you've already mentioned, do they have other types of crimes that is frequent? For example, shoplifting. Is that a real problem? I mean, do you find stuff that perhaps parents should be worried about their teenager or young 20-something getting into?
Shoplifting is very much a problem, especially in towns that have malls and shopping centers.
New Jersey loves our malls, right?
It is a crime. If you get caught leaving a store without having paid for an item, you're going to get charged. And you're going to have a record, and that record can follow you around.
Speaking of records, I've always been very curious. Is it really true that a juvenile can commit a crime up to 18 years old, and then after they turn 18, no one can ever find out about those crimes? So if they apply for a job after they've turned 18, they no longer have to check off a box, have you been arrested?
A juvenile record is normally confidential, but sometimes they can find out about it. But it is supposed to be confidential.
Okay, so that is an accurate statement. Well, Jim, thank you very much for coming in to explain this to us. And if you have one tip that you could come out with as a takeaway, what would you recommend?
If you're stopped by the police, be polite and cooperative. Always helps.
Great. Thanks so much for coming on again.
Thank you, Vivian.
She ripped half my hair out of my head. She scratched up my face, punched me in the face and the head. She tore my ACL.
Do you face physical violence, harassment, or verbal threats at work? Employers are required by law to provide a workplace free from hazards like workplace violence.
Even on the street, I wouldn't expect to be assaulted like that. Certainly not at work.
For information, go to njwec.org or osha.gov. This message brought to you by the New Jersey Work Environment Council.
Welcome to Stop My Crisis. I am your host, Vivian Gaspar, here to educate you on the most common crises the average person will face, and of course, how to handle them. Here with me today is Desi Isidro. And Desi is a licensed healthcare provider in New York and New Jersey. As crisis clinician, she has provided intervention, treatment, stabilization to patients in a state of mental health crisis. And as a mental health professional, providing ongoing treatment, collaboration, support, and coping skills to children, adolescents, and adults with mental health issues. Also, Desi is a wellness specialist, balancing your immune system to defend you from all illness, especially those brought on by stress. Desi, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your vast expertise. So tell me, we are facing a large gamut of stress nowadays. Unfortunately, 50% of marriages lead to divorce. And of course, it's still very stressful if you have a long-term relationship and you end up breaking up and you're not even divorced. So I think it's compounded that way. Not to mention by all the other financial hardships we face between credit card debt, housing crisis. Please tell me how have you helped people face it? And can we start off with a good story on one of the examples that you've helped, please?
A case in point is a patient who came in and seeking treatment for depression, anxiety, and stress.
That seems to be common,
yes,
right?
Very important, right? And during the course of treatment, I found out that she also has irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, is that an effect of the cause of stress?
It could be an effect or it could be a cause. So it's somehow related.
The chicken or the egg syndrome.
Yes, absolutely. And that is certainly true because there's a connection between the gut and the brain. And it's intimately connected and they have an important relationship and they communicate.
I think most people don't realize that. They think of other aspects such as high blood pressure. I don't think they realize the immune system is controlled vastly in the gut. Is that correct?
Yes, and in fact, metabolic syndrome, pain, inflammation, anxiety, depression, these are all gut language. Your gut is telling you what's going on in your body.
Does that have a lot of impact by what you eat as well?
Yes, yes, definitely. You have to have a diet that is rich in vegetables and fruits and whole grains. And it's important that you lessen the red meat in your diet and processed food.
Is there another common factor, perhaps all the chemicals in our food, perhaps pesticides?
Yes.
Making sure we perhaps go
Yes.
organic, is that a good idea?
Yes.
Or reduce the amount of preservatives in the foods that we eat?
That is very accurate. Food is medicine. So you have to be selective and you have to replace food and factors that damage your gut. You replace them with healing foods. And on top of that, you got to repair with nutritional supplementation, because sometimes it's not, the nutrients that we get in our food is not enough.
What is a couple of the examples of what I've heard so many times as the superfoods? What are those to you that you are an expert in?
Superfoods are good carbs, good fats, and protein.
What do you mean by good fats?
Good fats are fats that you utilize for energy. There are bad fats that just impact your health in a negative way. There are a lot of resources that you can find how to lower your red meat intake, your bad fats and bad carbs.
So would
it's
that be more
important.
avocado is good fat and less
Yes.
chocolate cake is bad fat?
You're right. Avocado is good for you versus chocolate cake. Simple. Yeah.
But you have to have a little balance everything. Chocolate
Yes.
cake once in a while is not so bad, right?
Oh, yes. And
Indulge a
I
little.
have an 80-20 rule. You can
Oh.
eat healthy 80%, 20% are the times when you feel like eating
Naughty?
processed food or being, yes, you're indulging, right? 20%. Just like 80% is food, 20% is movement, exercise. It's important to have regular exercise to balance your immune system and regular stress management. At the same time, there are available advanced technology devices and protocols to rebalance your immune system. There are a lot of state-of-the-art technology now in medicine that helps to do that.
Well, I'm always curious. There's so many different articles out there on the internet. Everywhere you look, they always talk about these special foods. So I understand what the concepts are, but can you just give me the 3 best fruits or vegetables in your opinion? If you had to just pick 3.
If I have to pick 3, I will choose avocado. That's my
Yeah,
favorite.
I love
And
avocados.
it is always true, an apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Oh, any particular apples? There's so many varieties.
It's better to buy the organic ones.
Do I mean like a Roma apple?
Oh, it
or-
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter which kind?
Yeah, and the most important thing is because apples are rich in pesticides.
Oh,
Yeah,
so make sure they're organic.
Make sure that you're putting in the right food in your system. Be selective. This is your body, so you should take care of it.
Well,
Be
let me-
mindful.
Let me ask you, we all know that organic can be very expensive. If it's either not easily accessible or you really need to watch your budget, is it okay if you just really wash it well if you're not able to buy organic?
Yes, and there are farmers markets. There are local growers. Buy from them.
That's a really good idea. Always support local
Yes,
businesses and farms.
absolutely.
It's the
Yes.
best way to go.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Desi. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
I
your knowledge to
appreciate
help
it.
everyone deal better with stress through health. And it's really not fiction. It's the best fact available, right?
Yes.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Do you need to blow the whistle on unsafe conditions at work? You may be protected by New Jersey law and by the federal agency called OSHA. For information, go to njwec.org or osha.gov. This message brought to you by the New Jersey Work Environment Council.
Welcome back to Stop My Crisis. I'm Vivian Gaspar, your host, and I'm very pleased to have someone here who solves the problems of the vast majority of New Jerseyans. Dani Adelstein is affectionately known as Dani Det to his clients and colleagues alike. He is one of the founding partners of JXD Financial, a debt consolidation company located in Long Island City, New York. Mr. Adelstein has been credited with helping over 1,500 families get rid of their overwhelming credit card debt and getting back on the path to financial freedom. Dani, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here.
I really appreciate you coming to educate our viewers on something that troubles almost everyone. Tell me, how do you go about doing something that most people think is unheard of?
Well, thank you again for inviting me. And I think the thing is many consumers share the common misconception that their credit card company is bad, especially when they're burdened by an overwhelming amount of credit card debt. In fact, inherently the credit card company's not bad. It's that when they're carrying a lot of debt that they have to repay back and the high interest rates. Those two things in conjunction with one another, those are killers.
But let me ask you this. I've seen so many credit card offers, and of course actual credit cards, where they're doing upwards of 29% interest rate. And of course, most people, I don't think, are aware of how the interest is charged on credit cards. Could you please go into that a little bit?
That is the key to the whole situation, compound interest.
Exactly.
It's absolutely deadly. Compound interest is interest that's charged on top of your principal, meaning whatever you charged and bought, and then on top of accumulating interest. Let me give you a great example. If you take a credit card with a $5,000 credit card balance and you take an 18% interest rate, which is typically the average interest rate that a lot of consumers are seeing right now, and you stop charging on the cards, never use it again, it would take you probably 10 years to pay that card back. At an average payment of about $189, you're looking at paying back $12,000. That's over 100% on your money. It's unheard of, and it's crippling consumers.
Is that the most damaging way the math is created and how interest, because of course people don't realize that math is different for different types of interest. For example, I'm sure you could tell us better that a mortgage is calculated one way, and of course credit card interest is calculated a completely different way. Is that accurate?
That's exactly right. So your credit card debt interest rate, most people look at their APR, or their annual percentage rate, and they think it may be 18%, which is still very high, but not deadly. But when you factor in that the interest rate is calculated on a daily basis and it's compounding, you can end up paying back over 100% on your money. So let me give you this thought. Imagine you bought a pair of jeans at the Gap, and then you stopped using the card. 10 years from now, you're technically still paying back money on that original pair of jeans that may be long gone.
Or you gained weight and you had to throw them out. As
That's
you got
exactly
older.
right. And you can't wear them anymore, but you're still paying for them. The truth of the matter is that we as consumers fit into two categories. There's the 35% and there's the 65%. 35% of us are convenience users. We buy something, we pay for it the following month. We don't carry a balance. But for the 65% that are revolvers, we carry a balance. The debt just goes on and on and on, and quite frankly, it's becoming an epidemic.
Here's my next question. Most people haven't even heard that there's something they can do about this. They think they're just doomed to this suffering. So what exactly is debt negotiation? How exactly can that help?
Well, that's the thing. Many Americans today are struggling with credit card debt because, for the most part, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. And unfortunately, they're finding out that they have more month than money. And it becomes more difficult to make basic living expenses, let alone put away money for savings. What do people do? They rely on the credit card. The great thing about debt negotiation is that it's the fight approach. It's not laying down, it's not giving up. It's basically saying, hey, I want to come to a meeting of the minds. I want to pay back my creditors, but I want to pay back what I can and not struggle with what I cannot.
So many people have told me that they need to save and balance out saving with paying down credit card debt. But now with this information and understanding how credit card debt is arrived at, shouldn't they pay down that debt more actively than saving? Because the time value of money tells me that that debt is such more of a burden because of how that calculation is derived at, as you just mentioned. It would be, I would think, a lot more logical to pay that off and then save. Is that correct?
Vivian, I think you bring up an excellent point. I just had a conversation with a client the other day, a small business owner here in New Jersey, a large amount of credit card debt. And the reason that he uses the credit card debt is to finance his business, hoping to get paid back a little bit later. And I told him very frankly, the biggest and best thing you can do for your business is invest in the business by paying down your credit card debt first. It's like paying yourself first. However, for those of us out there that are revolvers, that are struggling because of high costs of living, it may not be so easy. Let me give you a little bit of food for thought. In the last 12 years, income in America has gone up 26%. Sounds like a great number. Unfortunately, the cost of living has beat that every single year. So when you take income taxes going up, medical expenses up 51%, food cost up 37%, it's really hard to pay off your debt.
Dani, I really need to ask this question that's boiling within me. When people are crippled by debt, especially if it's not just credit card debt, and a lot of people consider to do bankruptcy when they have an overwhelming amount of credit card debt. What is the difference between negotiating this debt or this type of debt versus filing for a bankruptcy?
That's an excellent question, and I'm glad that you raised that point. Here in New Jersey, where incomes are very high, believe it or not, debt is very high. And in the past, there really weren't a lot of options out there. So most people that struggled only thought they could do one thing, which is give up and file for bankruptcy. If you're struggling and if there's absolutely no other resort, that may be a good resort. But if you have the ability and you have the wish and the will to fight this, you can have accountability and integrity by negotiating with the creditors or finding someone that can help you to negotiate with the creditors so that they can get paid back a portion of what you borrowed. It makes them happy and it helps balance your budget.
Dani, I think that you've been one of the most valuable guests that I can imagine because there's virtually no one who doesn't have this plaguing them. Credit card debt, I think, is something that affects every New Jersey family. And thank you so much on helping us figure out how we could resolve this without bankruptcy.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.